We're going to do a leg lower using the stretch strap. The leg lower is a great exercise to develop opposing hip flexion and extension and pelvic stability. So I'm going to have Brett put that strap around his foot. He's going to slide his foot right in there. He's going to lay back, grab it with both hands. I want to see him bring both his legs up nice and straight. Flex those quads. We want to see the toes flex towards the shins, elbows pulled toward the floor. I want him to take a big breath in the nose. Exhale, draw those ribs down while he slowly lowers this leg down towards the floor. I want to see that this leg stays locked straight. I want to see that that leg stays straight and doesn't rotate outwards. We're working on his ability to maintain hip flexion with the top leg while expressing hip extension on the downside leg. He's going to exhale so that he can develop some trunk and pelvic stability to maintain that pelvic position while that right leg goes down into hip extension. We're going to do a sideline quad stretch using the stretch strap. So I'm going to have Shelby put her foot through one of these loops here. She's going to flip over onto her side. I'm going to have her bring her downside knee up towards her chest. That's going to help lock her pelvic position in place. She's going to pull that strap behind her back, relax the ankle, let her heel come to her butt. And then as the coach, I want to help coach her pelvic position. For people who are tight, they're going to have a tendency to want to open up their hips and bring this leg way out to the side. What I want to do is get her pelvis square ahead and then keep her knee down. And she's going to pull that heel towards her butt so we can maximize the stretch through her hip flexor as well as her quad musculature here. Again, as the coach, we want to watch this downside leg as well because it's going to be a tendency for them to want to drop that knee. You want to make sure you're at least up till parallel and you're locking them in place here so they get a nice stretch to the front side of that thigh. We're going to do a half kneeling quad stretch using the stretch strap. So I'm going to get Shelby in a half kneeling position here. She's going to put one of these loops over the toe and over the top of her foot. She's going to pull that strap right up over her shoulders. So now she can leverage and pull this heel towards her butt. We want to have her pull, and then we also want to cue her to create some tension in her anterior abdominals. So we have some tension there. We don't want her opening up her chest. So I want you to think crunch down your abs a little bit. That's going to increase the stretch on her hip flexor and her quad right here. Again, we want to make sure they have nice torso position, and the goal is to try to get that heel all the way to the butt so we can maximize that stretch through the quad and hip flexor. We're going to do a seated calf stretch using the stretch strap. So I'm going to have Brett sit on the ground with his legs out straight. He's going to slide his foot through one of these middle loops here. He's going to straighten out this leg in front of him. I want him to grab both parts of the stretch strap here, lock this quad straight. I want to make sure we maximize the tension through that gastroc muscle. So I really want him to think about flexing that quad. And he's going to pull his forefoot up towards his chest. I want him to really put some good tension in there, hold. And if he wants to intensify the stretch, he can simply lift that heel up. That's going to put more tension through his calf as well as up into his hamstring and his hip. We're going to do a glute stretch using the stretch strap. So I'm going to have Brett lay back here. He has the strap just above his knee at the end of his hamstring here. He's going to pull that knee up towards his chest into flexion and hold. And we want to make sure as a coach, we coach this downside leg. The tendency for a lot of your clients, if they're tight, is going to be to rotate out or flex the knee up. We want to lock this downside leg down so we can maximize the hip flexion on the top side. We want him to really think about pulling that knee tight to the chest so he gets a nice stretch through his glute as well as that upper hamstring attachment at the top of his hip. We're going to do a low back and pelvic stretch using the stretch strap. So I'm going to have Brett put the strap around both his legs just above his knees. He's going to lay onto his back here. And he's going to pull those knees all the way up to his chest. This is a good relief position for people who might have lumbar and pelvic tightness. I'm going to have him pull those up, and we want to cue him to kind of relax into that stretch and take deep breaths. That's going to help open up some of that fascia and connective tissue just above his pelvis into his lumbar spine and hopefully provide a little bit of relaxation and relief for people who have tightness in their lumbar spine. We're going to do a hip rotator stretch using the stretch strap. So I'm going to have Brett put his foot right through there. He's going to put that strap right around his arch. He's going to lay on his back. He's going to pull this ankle and this foot up towards his chest so he gets this hip into external rotation. That's really going to target a good stretch into his piriformis and his hip rotators here. As the coach, I want to make sure I coach this downside leg. I don't want him to cheat. So I want to see this leg straight and it's not coming up off the ground. The tendency for a lot of people is going to be to rotate it out or lift it up. I want to see that this is square. That's going to allow us to maximize the stretch in the hip rotators on this active leg. We're going to do a hip flexor stretch using the stretch strap. So I'm going to have Brett put that strap right around the arch of his foot, and then he's going to flip over onto his stomach. So what we want to see is that he's going to pull that up over his shoulders towards his back. We're going to let this ankle plantar flex. He's going to try to pull the heel towards the butt. And then we even want to see some more extension to the hip, getting that knee up off the ground. Sometimes as the coach, it could be good to provide a little stability for them, put them a little pressure in their lumbar so they don't overextend and that we're getting the extension through the hip more so than the lumbar spine. We want them to hold that there and really think about trying to pull that up so we get a big stretch not only through the hip flexor, but also through the quadricep muscles. We're going to do a tricep and lat stretch using the stretch strap. So I'm going to have Brett grab it in his right hand. He's going to turn around here so you guys can see. He's going to flex that arm up over the head and he's going to pull his hand behind the back of his head here. He's going to pull down and that's going to allow us to get both a lat stretch, posterior shoulder stretch, as well as a real nice tricep stretch on this top side. If he wants to intensify it, he can simply just choke up a little bit on that downside arm and pull a little bit more. So that's going to increase the amount of shoulder flexion as well as the amount of tension through that tricep muscle. We're going to do a chest, bicep, and anterior shoulder stretch using the stretch strap. So we want Brett to grab the two closest circles on the stretch strap, as you can see here. Then he's going to bring his hands behind his back. Okay, so we want to make sure these elbows are straight. We want to see his posture is nice and tall. Then we want to cue him to think about extending that shoulder behind him. This is going to be a tough stretch to do. It's going to be a pretty significant stretch in this bicep tendon, anterior shoulder, as well as this lower bicep area here. We want them to think about really trying to reach back and hold. Maybe take a big breath in, big breath out, and hold that position while you're stretching it. Now I'm going to have Brett turn so you can see posteriorly what that looks like here. So again, his hands are in these first two holes here. He's going to extend his arms back behind him and maintain a nice tall posture. Really intensify that stretch here as he breathes. He can take a break, come back down, and then perform another repetition here. Good. Reach back, extend up, come back down. We're going to do a torso stretch using the stretch strap. So I'm going to have Brett grab this. We want to get him in the rung. So his hands are probably just outside his hips here. He's going to put his hands in there. Then I'm going to have him reach those arms straight up over the head. And what we want to see is that he keeps his lower body relatively still, and I want him to side bend to the left. This is going to be a great way to get his rib cage moving and open up and stretch these lat muscles here. Good thing you can do is cue them to take a big breath in and a big breath out as they go through the stretch. I want you to side bend. I want you to hold it there. I want you to stay here now. Take a big breath in, big breath out, and that's going to really mobilize that rib cage, get that lat stretched out to help him get into a better overhead position.